What's going on, everyone? JD here, Las Vegas. Douglas Elliman with another video podcast to interview another top agent in our network, in our family, by the name of Wade Giles out of Texas. Over 10 years in the industry of real estate, part of the Elite 25 in Austin, Texas, ranked 0.01% in sales with 400 million plus in sales altogether, and the number one producing team out in Austin, Texas, well, actually in Texas, period. So a lot of accolades, a lot of experience. I'm looking forward to meeting right now. So we got Wade on the screen. What's going on, Wade?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Of course, man. First and foremost, it's a pleasure to meet you for the first time. It's exciting. I get to know a little more about you, know your story. How I became a fan, if you don't know, Wade has a great social media presence. It's very different in a good way. I think it's so different in a sense where it's refreshing. And I think that's one thing that I think you're trying to accomplish. And you did just that, Wade. And we'll go into that here shortly. But that's how I reached out to him. I was like, I need to talk to this guy to kind of see how it came about. But obviously, an infectious smile as there is. But let's get right into the beginning. Tell us about yourself, Wade, a little about your backstory. I did tell me you're from Texas. You have great sales, kind of thing, great history. But tell us how you got into the business and a little more about you.
All right, cool. Real estate has always been something that I have wanted to pursue. When I was in college, I got a finance degree with a concentration in real estate. I actually took a lot of appraisal courses in college and thought I was going to be like a commercial appraiser, which, like, knowing myself and knowing what that job role is in reality would have not been a good fit for me. So real estate sales is exactly where I need to be. But I've always been really drawn to architecture and design. I've always been really drawn to people as well. So it just seemed like a very easy, seamless transition, but it wasn't quite as straightforward. I graduated from college, decided to backpack through Southeast Asia and moved to Australia for about a year and a half after college. That was in 2008, 2009. So all my job offers that I had deferred for a year so I could go and experience life were no longer there. No one was hiring finance majors. And I ended up coming back to the States and selling fabric protection, which basically a fancy Scotch guard.
For couches and stuff like that?
What's that?
For couches and,
Yeah, and curtains. So here I am. I'm broke, just got back from Australia, living in a 500 square foot studio in Atlanta, selling a luxury product in a recession. So that was pretty challenging, but I was fortunate enough that I landed two really big hotels that were being built at the moment in Atlanta. And they had one of them in particular, everything in that hotel was white. So I landed not one, but two really big hotel projects, and in addition to some great residences, and actually exceeded all my expectations. It ended up being a really good fit for a while. Fast forward, that company ended up going under. I think my boss at the time didn't quite understand commission split structures and never anticipated that we would get so lucky to get two big hotels, and it kind of imploded the whole deal. I meet my now husband, this was 15 years ago, move up from Atlanta to New Jersey where he was living. I was like, I want to go into real estate. And he's like, after a few months of living there, and while I was still working for the other company, I was like, I really want to go into real estate. I think that's really what I want to do. And he was like, you don't really care for the people here and you don't really care for the architecture, which was true at the time. The area that we lived in wasn't my favorite place that I'd ever lived before. And
that's Jersey?
That I might have some real challenges with just the landscape of what the real estate market was there and the demographic.
Sure.
And he was like, in your way to we travel all the time, whatever. So fast forward 5 more years, we moved to Austin. And when we moved to Austin, I was working for a clothing company in their corporate office back in New York. I was commuting into the city every day. And when we moved here to Austin, I took a job with them, helping them on their retail division, which I had never done before. And I was really there to go help open stores in Texas, which again was new to me. And I quickly found myself on the floor selling pants and was the number one salesperson for the company after my first month from the stores that they had opened at that time. And I was like, okay, well, look, I can sell pants, I can sell houses, right? It's the same thing. I basically went to my partner at the time, my husband now, and said, look, I'm not asking for your permission. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to do this. And again, it's not like I needed his permission, but I just was like, this is the time. I like the people. I like the architecture. I feel like this is my moment to do it. I said, listen, give me 6 months. Let's see how it works out for 6 months. And if it doesn't work out, if it doesn't pan out, I'll go back to 9 to 5 and no big deal. But I was like, I just feel like I'm meant to do this. And so that was almost 11 years ago. And fast forward to today, he's on my team and is like an invaluable asset to what we do each and every day.
That's super cool. Where'd you go to school?
I went to LSU. LSU, go Tigers.
Yeah. Okay, right on. So you moved around a lot, you traveled a lot. Do you think everything you did, obviously, I believe that all the experience you have led up to where you're at today, like all the experience of talking to different people and cultures, all that communication styles, I think that helps you kind of mold you to who you are today. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I grew up, originally, I'm from Texas. I'm from the Houston area.
Okay.
I lived in Austin for about a little less than a year when I was about 12. Back to Houston and then Louisiana and all over. But getting to experience different cultures and lifestyles and demographics has been super interesting for me. I'll never forget when I moved from the suburb of Houston to Lafayette, Louisiana. They have such a thick Cajun accent. I couldn't understand anyone. Like when I first moved there, I was like, "Are they speaking English?" Like it was such a different, thick accent. And then you fell in love with the culture. I mean, the people there are just the kindest, most genuine, and the best food, and so on and so forth. It's been neat to have a bit of a melting pot growing up. I also grew up really heavily involved in the horse community. I've been riding horses my whole life. Huge passion of mine, and I think having access to or being involved in that equestrian community, even though I wasn't actively competing in it. I was more like the one like cleaning the stalls and getting the horses ready. Parents really couldn't afford that lifestyle, but I was committed to being a part of it no matter what I needed to do. And I think getting to live a little bit in that world and meeting those people did also help mold me into who I am today.
Yeah. So I totally agree. That's cool. That's a great point where, yeah, you might not at that time have the funds because, as you know, horses is very expensive. I mean, to have a horse is very expensive, right? So if you love what you do, find your way to get in it in any way possible and to learn about it. So that made you more valuable when that time comes to have horses. Like I know how to do this. Like I've done it. So back to growing up in Austin, Texas. Obviously, Texas has boomed over the last, I would say 15, 20 years, right? So, growing up Austin to now, I mean, it's a huge difference.
I mean, even just since I've been back for the last 11 years, the skyline has like tripled and is continuing to do so. We have the two tallest residential towers this side of the Mississippi are both in Austin. Wow. I mean, number one and number two. Austin has just grown so significantly over the last 20 years, but I would say even really in the last 10 has been the biggest growth.
Same thing with Vegas. It's funny. When people say where they move into, I hear Austin, Texas. I hear Las Vegas. Some markets that have been growing substantially over the last year. Agreed. 5 to 10 years was the biggest jump I see for us as well. Yeah. I think Austin, people think tech. Is that still a thing out there? Is that still pushed out there?
Yeah, no, tech is still very much a thing. Tech has softened. I mean, look, it softened everywhere back in 22 and is still taking a little while to recover. We're definitely seeing all kinds of startups still here and startups that are growing. A buddy of mine just had a great Series A with local Austin investors just a couple weeks ago. We are seeing money still move here in Austin. But, we were affected just like everywhere else in the country in the tech sector.
I'm curious, maybe your market too. A lot of companies you can work remotely now, or you know what I mean? So did that change the landscape as well in a sense of less companies actually having a brick and mortar or a headquarters, as you will, more of a meeting space, and everyone's working remotely too? So I'm curious if that affected your market too.
Yeah, absolutely. In 2020, when a lot of companies came out and directly said, so it's a little bit different actually here in Austin. Quite a few companies say, hey, look, we need you back in the office. Maybe not 5 days a week, but we need you in 3. Or whatnot. But in 2020, when a lot of these, especially the big tech companies, said you'll never have to come to an office ever again, a lot of people sold their homes that they were living in closer into town and said, well, I can sell my house for a bunch of money and then go and buy something that gives me a room where I can actually have a proper Zoom conversation. We can have some more space because we're never going to be out in public again. That was the mentality. So we saw a lot of people said, well, I don't have to worry about commuting anymore, so we're going to go buy something out in the hill country. Some of those people are having to fight some significant traffic to come in to the office every so often. We're kind of seeing, we saw this expansion in the city, and then now we're kind of seeing, some more retraction.
Interesting. Well, I just find it interesting because you're a part of the Texas, what do you call it? The Dallas, Austin, what do you guys call that again? Your metro, I guess you're the metro Dallas area, is that?
So that's the Dallas, Fort Worth, Dallas.
Yes.
I wouldn't say we're being linked quite closely with San Antonio just yet, but more and more of that conversation. San Marcos is another smaller city that's grown quite a bit. I think in the next 10 years, Austin and you'll have people living in San Antonio that will be commuting into Austin, from the Boring Company or whatnot.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay. Well, last year you had obviously a phenomenal year. You had #1 team out in Texas, so congratulations to that, you and your whole team. I know it's not all you by yourself, like you said. You and your partner, the CEO, and your team. It takes a team to produce those kind of numbers, right? Because of what's going on in the market, we're all battling the same thing across the nation, even globally, right? High interest rates, low inventory, a lot more questions, and of course the NAR stuff, right? What does your business look like in 2024? What is your team doing to educate your clients and also protect your clients, but also keeping the positive mindset of continuing the numbers you did last year?
I'll be the first to tell you my year is going to look very different from last year. I'm totally okay with that because I had a wonderful baby girl that was born in May, and she has been a long time coming, and I've been focusing so much on what's truly important. And I think what this year has taught me is a lot, especially with our market being the reality is it's had a shift. I have a listing right now that is listed for 33% less than what my client paid for it 2 years ago in certain areas of town. So while things have been so, I've been encouraging my clients to rent out their properties. I've been encouraging them to hold on to it for a little while longer if they can, if money is their priority. Sometimes it's time, and then that's a different conversation. Really trying to encourage my clients to wait this stuff out because this too shall pass. And I think we're starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully that light's not a train. It's been a lot of just like managing people's emotions and expectations. Also taking more time. I think it's easy for all of us as realtors, like when we're slow, we can do more and work ourselves into a frenzy. I've done that for so many times in the past. And this time I'm trying to work a little smarter, not harder. As I go into the fall, I've implemented some new strategies to my business. I'm doing a couple of breakfasts and different like volunteer events and happy hours with different people in the community that I wouldn't know otherwise. I'm actually reaching out to different people and that I think could be mutually beneficial for us to have a relationship with. And also really loving on my past clients. And one of the people on my team she's a client success coordinator. Part of what her job entails is like client drop-offs and of little things when we see on social media that they're having a new baby. We love to send a little something or an engagement anniversary. Gifting's a big part of our program, and especially this year when there haven't been as many transactions, just staying top of mind in a nice and thoughtful ways will lead itself to future business. And again, just maintaining the relationships.
No, I love that. I think it's cool. The people who are managing the business the best right now, the ones like, to your point, buyers are different right now. Everything is different right now. So no matter what you do or how hard it is, it's going to be almost the same result in a sense. So therefore, pulling back and be smarter in your business versus burning yourself out, right, with the same results. So you're right, touching your clients a little more you haven't touched in the past, because when the business is booming, you're focused on today, not the ones in the past. And sometimes they get left. So reaching out to them, doing events, small events, reaching out, celebrating their wins that are outside real estate. Anniversaries, birthdays, new babies, stuff like that. That's huge. And to show we obviously still care. There's no doubt we still care, but now it gives opportunity to show a little more love during these times.
Absolutely. Another thing that I've done this year, especially with some of my new construction development stuff that I've been like started and stopped, is really looking to be like, who's real here? Which clients are real? Who am I hoping is actually going to come to the table, or who am I pursuing that is so unrealistic with current market dynamics that this is going to be a futile effort? And yeah, I might be busy, but I'm busy doing what? So really this year, more than ever, I've really been identifying and analyzing which opportunities are worth pursuing. I think having a kid has been a big part of that, because now I don't have all the time in the world to sit in front of my computer like I used to.
It changes priorities. I think in a beautiful way. I'm a father myself. My daughter's 9. I'm not gonna lie, if it wasn't for her and my wife, I'd be a workaholic. But I mean, it's what happens, right? Because this business can consume you, overtake you, and not the positive way. I don't think. I think having that child, and congratulations, by the way, what a beautiful blessing. What's her name?
Her name's Harlow.
Harlow, super cute. But having Harlow now, it definitely puts things into different perspective in that sense, right? You look forward to coming home, even if, like, you know what, my calendar isn't busy. I'm gonna call it quits for the day. I'm gonna go home. You know what I mean? And so, if it wasn't for her, I'm not saying you wouldn't do that regardless, but you might not. You second guess that, right? It's beautiful, and then you also know what you're working for as well. It's a new why, as you will, right? And so
exactly.
It's a beautiful beautiful thing too. I'm sure your clients are also supportive of that too. I have many clients in my past clients in my Rolodex who had said, hey, our meeting's at 5. Let's do it quickly. I want you to go home to your family. I want you to go home to your daughter. Sharing with my family because they appreciate that and they appreciate your time and respect your time. And I think that you're going to see that more and more as you continue, as Harlow grows as well.
I hope so.
Yeah, no, I think that's a beautiful thing, man. There's a lot of us agents who I interview who are like, man, my family's the one that really pulls me back, who puts me in check sometimes, because we sometimes, a horse analogy, we have blinders on. We really do.
Yeah.
We have blinders on. We see what's in front of us only, and not everything beside us. And it's our family who's on their side going, they're going to be our biggest cheerleaders. They're going to be our biggest supporters all day, every day. But they also want your time. And that's it. That's important. I'll tell you this, my daughter being 9, it goes by so fast, Wade. I would tell you, enjoy every second you can.
Yeah, I'll tell you that. Since she's arrived, I am working from home more often at my home office now. I did bring her into the office yesterday, so she got to say hello to the people in the office for a little bit. I'm really working more from home. So when I do have even 5 or 10 minutes in between calls or whatnot, I can go see her for a second.
Really, that's cool. So, and that's what this business allows, that flexibility in that sense where you can work from home occasionally. That's a beautiful thing. I'm lucky. I haven't missed any of my daughter's performances, any games, and none of that. I will never miss that because I can work around to be part of that. It's all special, man. So trust me, I'm a girl dad and it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So obviously you have some great things happen in the past, man. What was your breakthrough moment in your career? You're like, made it, or you felt that, and it doesn't have to be like you made it. It could be like, this is what I'm supposed to do, kind of thing. What would be that breakthrough, or a couple moments you've had in your career?
I'll tell you about the first listing that I ever had, because I learned a lot in a 2-week period. The first listing that I ever got was almost $6 million.
That's your first listing?
Yeah. Today, that property is worth 25 or so, 20 to 25. Was able to get it like photographed, marketed. I was fortunate that I had some really good mentors that were making sure that I wasn't going to fall on my face. Got the house under contract within 4 days for full ask. It was a cash deal. I had asked for proof of funds. I was sent a letter that I shared with my client. I did everything that I thought I was supposed to do, and I did. And we vetted them as best we could, all to find out that right before the end of the option period, which is our like inspection period, you pay a small fee to do your inspections. I know every state's different. They had not paid the money, and they were like, "Oh, so sorry, we'll get it to you." But he had fallen ill with some sickness, and they had to terminate. My client was the most over micromanaging, mean individual. When I went on the listing appointment, he was very nice, and as soon as things started, he was a different person. Just the mental exercise that I went through for the 2 weeks for him to ultimately fire me because of the buyer falling apart. Come to find out, fast forward 4 months, I get a call from BI. They'd been following him. He had been doing this to lots of different homes and he was a total fraud. So it taught me a couple things. One, it taught me that it's super important to vet people as best you can, and you can't vet them as best you can. The agent on the other side has vetted them the best you can so that you can mitigate these things. Because since then, I've had 3 other instances in my career. The truth is there are weirdos out there that get excited to have people show them a big fancy house and cater to them and be responsive and have this feeling, I guess, I don't know, of like power or whatnot. There's something, and then offer it to them just be for nothing. It's a game to them. I've got some tools that I've used to help mitigate those things moving forward. And 2, and I think more importantly, was that I'd have like an a-hole policy. I mean, this guy was a jerk. Now, granted, it was my first listing ever. I'd been in the business for 5 minutes. I was overwhelmed and stressed over things that today would not bother me whatsoever. And I know how to manage clients better than I do today. Maybe I've just become more accustomed to have more bandwidth, I think, for sure. But also, I think I've attracted a clientele, or I try to attract a clientele that are good people with good morals, values that are generally positive, that all kind of want the same thing. So in general, I like to approach a transaction with like, you catch more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And from a collaborative approach, that's really how I think you try to make it when you can. Sometimes you can't.
No, absolutely. What a crazy story. It's funny. You remind me, I have one situation like that too. It was weird. It was the same situation where he wanted me to show him homes kind of thing. He gave me the story like I'm staying at someone's house right now while I find the perfect home. I vetted as best I could. Come to find out he was like almost like a fraud situation too. And I spent a lot of time, but that was also early in my career in a sense where as a new agent, you're hungry, right? You're hungry and you might be more naive in that sense because you obviously want to get the deal. You want to show them that you're the best agent in the world. You'll do everything for this person, and come to find out it's a similar situation. But
and look, to be fair, they were represented by another agent who'd been in the business for 20 plus years in our industry. I had known him and his reputation and so on and so forth. So it wasn't like they were unrepresented and it was all up on me. We were all.
And those guys or those people are they do this like to your point. They're professionals at this stuff. They check all the boxes that like, all right, we did our due diligence. What else could there be? And come to find out, there's more. But no, that's awful. But yeah, especially for the new agents out there, obviously my recommendation, I'm sure Wade, is obviously protect yourself, right? And as you gain more experience, like Wade, you're going to see these red flags pretty early in the game. Where you're like, oh, this is exactly. I've come to deals where you go, if it starts sketchy, it's going to end up sketchy. I mean, that's kind of how it ends. Or it starts rocky, it doesn't usually end up smooth. It ends up rocky or doesn't complete at all.
Totally. And this may or may not help anyone, but at least through Austin Board of Realtors, and check with your Board of Realtors, we have an app that we have access to that are included in our dues. It's called Forewarn, Forewarn. It's for Realtors. You have to have a background check. You can pull people up by various things, phone number, name, and so on and so forth, and get a little glimpse into their property history, car ownership history, things like that.
That's good.
Because another thing, I had another instance years later, and again, caught it much quicker. It will sniff it much quicker. We'll rent Turos and we'll rent luxury vehicles.
Oh. Wow. No, they can rent an Airbnb for the weekend, pick them up at a nice house or a Turo. It's very easy to rent a Turo. I rent Turos all the time. But it's very easy to do that too. So no, that's interesting. That's a good point. Ultimately is protect yourself. Always protect yourself. Obviously, if the more the client's pushing back when you keep asking questions, the fishier it gets. So the red flags start coming out. So do your part, protect your business. And of course, if they're putting offers, it protects the seller, the agent, all that stuff too. That comes with experience for sure. What a crazy situation, man. I think your breakthrough is pretty much just doing it on the job, right? And learning the nuances and understanding people, all that stuff. And you've been 10 plus years. Pre-Douglas Elliman, who were you with before that?
Pre-Douglas Elliman, I was with a local boutique brokerage named Moreland Properties. And I was with them for 9.5 years. And I've been with Douglas Elliman for, it'll be about a year and a half, 2 years in April.
Cool. Yeah, same thing. Just over 2 years too, which is cool. But I get lucky to meet people like you, man. The industry has changed a lot. I mean, let's be honest. From the digital platform, from AI to working from home, working remotely, there's so many factors moving on in the real estate industry. We don't have a crystal ball, and that's all we all say to our clients. We don't have a crystal ball, but this is what we're seeing right now because we have boots on the ground, Wade. But what do you see real estate heading the next 5 years with all those moving factors? What do you see happening?
Well, I think that we will see agents who focus on areas where it's pretty easy to, like master plan communities, major apartment buildings or condo buildings that are pretty easy to comp. The good news is that real estate is a relationship business, but I do worry about AI taking out some of us as agents. I think in the luxury space, there will always be nuance because most of these homes are custom and people have done remodels, and it is so much a relationship-based business. I do think that we're going to see some major shifts in real estate because of affordability. I do imagine that we will see some smaller cities start to have some significant growth, similar to what we saw like in Boise, Idaho, and other markets like that back in 2020, 2021, because there is a housing shortage. I'm hopeful that rates are in a different position, and at least here in Austin, and speaking to different economists, lenders, going to economic forecasts, the sentiment here, general sentiment would be that 2025 is going to be a rebuilding year for us here in Austin. That 2026, or even potentially second half of 25, could be where we start to see some more growth. I think social media and video are going to continue to be a big part of real estate, and people are going to continue to set the bar when it comes to getting traction on their properties. AI is going to have it already has, but it's going to only continue to have a huge impact. I do wonder if there will be components that will allow us to get to the closing table quicker, and I think that might vary from state to state, but through potentially blending title and lending it maybe on the back end through an AI portal.
I agree with you. I think AI is a big component for, I think, any industry, to tell the truth. Every industry is trying to find how they can utilize AI for usability. For instance, like pulling stats. My goodness, it's easy now with the AI. It's insane. Before it was all spreadsheets, and that's like, you can pull it like this now, which is great. Yeah. But at the same time, it's great for the consumer because they can do it without us, right? So what value do we bring at this point? And that's where it comes to relationships, right? Obviously, the nuances in real estate, the protection value, the legality, the documentation, the protection. There's so many different things out why we're necessary. So we got to make sure we show our value, regardless of what AI is doing to our industry. But I think if you use it appropriately to make sure you back up that information, I recommend don't do AI everything and just put it out there. You got to have some kind of human component. I can validate this because I've seen A, B, and C, right? Don't be overcome by AI. When it comes to your social, I agree. I think people want to see who you are, and that's the human component. You want to build that relationship. They want to know, like, I kind of know Wade. I follow him on social media. I met him, and he's also consistent across his platforms. He's the same guy across everything I see. And I'm glad you brought the social media component, man. Once again, applaud to you and your social team or yourself or all the stuff that you've created. I think it's great. I think it's also refreshing. So let's talk about that briefly. And what made you do different things with social media? What triggered your mind, or is that something you've always been a part of?
I had sold 2 properties when I did my first video pretty early on, a couple months into real estate. A buddy of mine that I'd gone to high school with from Louisiana, who was also living in Austin. He and his brother, they're doing some really cool movies, actually, and they've gotten picked up at some film festivals now. It's fun to see like where they were 10 years ago filming me, and now they're actually doing really cool stuff. They did an awesome documentary with Willie Nelson. They've done some awesome projects. They were friends of mine. And I said, hey guys, I've got 2 clients. I've sold 2 houses. Could you put together, would you be willing to do some videos and client testimonial stuff for me? And so they agreed, and we went to a couple different locations. My clients were nice enough to do that with me, and they were awesome. I will say, listening to your client, at first one I was like, oh, I'll just listen. It was the most uncomfortable thing I had ever done in my entire life. So moving forward, any client testimonial, I'm never there. But
it's like someone complimenting you the whole time where you're right in front of them, right?
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, do it again. And you're like, oh, no, I don't want to. Like,
don't do it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was awful. Nice of them, but you know what I'm saying? Hard to. So anyway, so we did that. And this was back in the day when social media algorithms were not nearly as complex, and we didn't have all these like rules and regulations. And so you could post a video and say, I went in this target market, and I just posted my video that was horizontal, wasn't even like a 16:9 vertical video on Facebook, and I think eventually Instagram. I don't even know if I had Instagram at the time. And that's kind of how my video stuff started. And it would be interesting. I'd be holding an open house or something, and people would come in and be like, oh, I know you from your video that comes up on my Facebook all the time. So it worked. And nowadays, of course, social has changed so much. I'm fortunate to have a social media coordinator now that plans everything. And I film all the content, but she takes over as far as when it goes out, the hashtags, and all that stuff. Because at the end of the day, that's not the highest and best use of my time, and I need to be focusing on sales and other things. I've given that up over the last couple of years, continuing to have the same voice. I do my stories. I'll occasionally post on there myself, but generally speaking, it's all been pre-planned. We like to do these fun videos, and we're constantly coming up so I think the video that you're referring to is with a bunch of realtors in it. Is that correct?
The one I'm referring to is the last minute open house swimming pool.
Yeah. So a buddy of mine, he's also a realtor. He's at another brokerage. We were neighbors for years and years and years. And I just moved. We did a funny video last summer, which involved us jumping in the pool. And it was a spoof off another realtor from another brokerage. He was a friend of ours anyway, we did this whole thing. And this year we decided to do a part 2, which actually was, I guess, 5 parts in video. We brought in like 19 agents from, I think, 11 different brokerages to come in and just have like a fun video. And there really wasn't a huge point to it. It'd be great if it sold the house. It was more to get agents together, to collaborate, to have some fun, help our social media algorithms in the process. Because let me tell you, I think those videos in a week, we got 185,000 impressions. In a month, an increase of like 185,000 impressions, which is pretty significant. Sometimes socials to get a message out there, sometimes socials to try to sell something, sometimes socials used to promote a charity or a nonprofit, and then sometimes we just use social to have fun.
That's cool. It's hard to concept. We're like, hey, we're going to do this video. We're going to coordinate all this stuff. What's the point? Just to have fun. Like it's like people it's hard for people to understand that, right?
The point was to have fun. The point was also to draw new attention to our accounts so that we can then go on to those things that we do want, and it's helping our clients, our listings get more exposure. So
100%.
there is a point.
There's a plan to the madness. Yeah. No, I agree. But just to hear that concept, we're not showing a listing or a time or the address or a price. It was more like, this is the plan for your point. End goal is to promote everything else, but let's have fun with this one. And that's cool. I mean, so it's a different kind of approach versus, I mean, everyone else is, including myself, are so like fixated on like, hey, all right, listing posts, we're gonna do this, we're gonna showcase this kind of thing. And to tell you the truth, all my followers know what I do, but it's making something different to gain other traction, to bring them to your social and then continue your other posts as well. And that's smart.
Here's the thing that people forget, realtors forget. That buyer who's stalking you on social is going to stalk you for maybe 3 to 6 months before they're like probably ready to buy a house. So yeah, you need to have real estate stuff on there. They're also kind of deciding like if they like you or not and who you are as a person. So if it's just houses, you're boring, you have no personality, they're probably going to move on. If it's all just one thing one way or the other, I don't know, you're limiting yourself to one demographic, right? A narrower demographic. If you cast a little bit of a wider net and you are vulnerable on social, you're really showing people who you are. They're going, and it's not all real estate related content all the time, because look, once they close on that house, they don't care about your coming soon.
No.
Right? Like they bought their house. So how are you going to keep them engaged? Or they're just going to unfollow you because they're not buying a house anymore.
Right.
Do yourself a favor, keep your past clients in your sphere engaged with other value-added content and criteria so that whenever they're having dinner with a friend of theirs and they're like, I think we're finally going to do it, we're going to buy that house. Like, oh my God, you need to go work with Wade. His Instagram is da-da-da-da. Like, go check him out. And you know, that's how that happens.
I agree. I was from day one becoming an agent. I was like, I need a social media presence for sure. Why? Is because I believe that's your living and breathing business card now these days, right? Mm-hmm. People go, what's your handle, right? And I rarely give out cards, period. I don't believe it anymore. People toss them and whatnot. So I go, hey, I'm just gonna follow you, follow me back. You can see my whole business. I'm very transparent at that point. The business card tells me nothing, right? But your social media tells you everything, right? But also to have the variety of content is super important too. I believe in the 3 E's of social media: educate, engage, entertain. And so, but that's what I believe in, right? And to your point, no one wants to see the same thing over and over again. They want to see the different things. They want to see uniqueness. Of course, they want market information. That's super important, because if they have a home, how's my home doing? If they don't have a home, is it the right time? I always like engaging posts too. Like, hey, are you a fan of this colors? Hey, the whites are on their way out. Are you a fan of the warmer tones? People love to talk about that stuff too, right? But it shows that we're in front of what's happening. We're in front of the trends. We see what's happening too. And they use this as a resource. How many calls do you get at a time, a Wade or a text? Hey, Wade, I'm thinking about doing a kitchen remodel. What do you think about this? They want your opinions, because they're like, hey, what are people buying these days? What are people seeing these days? And they trust us. I tell every agent too, your goal is to be the go-to with anything real estate related, anything. Like, hey, I'm thinking about painting my house. What do you think about these colors? Now, that means they trust us. That just comes with deepening in that relationship. I believe every client is not a transaction. Every client is a friend and becomes a friend if you do it obviously right too.
That's correct. Yeah, but, I 100% agree. And like with my clients, like whenever they're, when we're buying a lot and they're going to build their custom home, I'm always like, look, I know that they're saying we're never going to sell it. We're never going to sell it. This is our forever home. And I've heard that way too many times. Then it's turned out to be untrue. So I'm always like, okay, I totally get it. But please, before you sign off on these plans, just let me run through them. Just let me look at them just in case. Something happens and you get hit by a milk truck and we got to sell the house one day. Because when people get left to their own devices, they might have a great builder and a great architect, but you need a realtor to make sure that people are going to respond to moving forward.
Agree.
You know?
Not everyone wants a water slide from your primary bedroom to the den.
Exactly. And if you want to do that, fantastic. But what's your plan B whenever someone wants to take it out? How do we retrofit it?
Agreed. But I think that's important. I think that's something that you've gone and I've gone as well, where people utilize it for everything. And I love it. Even the smallest question, I had someone comment and reach out to me. He's like, hey, I'm an HOA president. Pickleball is becoming a big thing. No one uses the tennis courts. Should I convert my tennis into pickleball? I'm like, Absolutely. More people play pickleball than tennis by far. Tennis players become pickleball players. It's just what you should do. I love those. And they use me as a resource to have those questions, which is great. You're super experienced. What piece of advice would you give to any agent established, new or whatnot? I mean, you've given a lot of great nuggets already, from social media presence, relationship building, holding events during this kind of market, loving on your clients, which is all phenomenal stuff. But what else, other advice or nuggets could you give to agents right now?
One of my biggest clients, he's a very successful CFO in the tech space. He's always given me some really great advice. But one thing that he said to me many, many years ago that just stuck with me, the Goldman Sachs quote, and I cannot remember his name, but it's be long-term greedy. Always be long-term greedy. That resonated with me because I don't want to sell someone one home. I want to sell them the next 10 homes, and I want to sell their brother-in-law home and their former neighbor a home. I want to sell everyone a home within their network. I think if you constantly work in integrity and you're looking out for your client's best interest, even when it can be difficult, when real estate has been quieter in a lot of parts of the country, I think sometimes people can be dissuaded, I guess. It's become vulnerable to working outside of morals and ethics. And I think especially right now, while things are tough, to really dig down and dig deep and stick true to your guns, it's going to pay off in the long term. At the end of the day, the only thing that we really have is our education and our integrity. You can take everything away. You can take all the things away. And being patient, not too patient.
Yeah, you want to obviously support the persons in front of you, but think long term, and that's important by doing the right thing, by being ethical, being a protector, because that can turn into much more business, right? Because you did the right thing. Right? Your goal is not to say, "Hey, oh, well, you have that rich brother, right? Let me get a piece of that." No, it's like, let me take care of you. You're in front of me, and naturally, it should come to you because you did the right thing for the client in front of you, and that comes organically by doing the right thing. There's no better feeling. Wade, I'm sure you get this call too, or like, "Hey, I got shot by an agent, like it was crazy. I just told him straight up, like, I have a guy, like, I'm sorry." You know what I mean? And that's a great feeling. The loyalty is there too, because you hear that term, buyers are liars. People jump ship all the time. But that's because you haven't created that relationship or that tight bond. You're not going to blend with everyone you work with. That's just not a possible thing. But your goal is to be true to yourself, be honest and ethical, to hopefully tighten that relationship, because they'll just trust you. Like, hey, me and Wade kind of think differently in different things, but I know he's got my back. He'll protect me, and that's something you can't take away from somebody, right? And I agree with the patience part, right? Right now, there's a lot of agents who are struggling right now, who are or living the business altogether right now because of what's happening in the market. My theory goes, all the stuff you're doing today is going to help you pay tomorrow. You got to just continue growing, because when that time comes, you did the legwork versus you didn't do no legwork, and now you're behind again. But it's hard, and I get it.
Especially to the seasoned agents and people who've been in this for a long time, like going back to basics. Look, I'll be the first one to tell you that a couple of years ago, I was like, I will never hold another open house ever again. And guess what? I was holding an open house last weekend.
Let's go.
So, I mean, because that's what needs to be done right now. No task is too small. You just have to roll up your sleeves and do whatever you need to do what you can to get these houses sold.
I agree. I totally agree. Man, I watched your video, Wade, and one of the comments that you made, which I believe in too, is I literally love what I do. I literally love what I do. I never like wake up and go, oh man, I got to show us home. I got to do this listing. I got to do it. I don't feel that way ever. I'm lucky. I think I found what I'm supposed to be doing, and I think you found what you're supposed to be doing too. And that helps us. It propels us to do the stuff like an open house. I'm a big open house guy. I truly believe I can showcase the home better than anyone else can. So that means I'm going to have a higher opportunity of selling the home, because a lot of agents don't put the extra work and find out more. They just walk the home, but I can tell you exactly what this home has, the features, what they did, why they did it, and the benefit and value to you, potentially the new buyer. That's why I do it. And everyone's got their business and what they do well, but it's nice to hear to say, yeah, back to the basics, back to what got you to where you're at today, and continue to sharpen that skill. And your team will also see, like, hey, if Wade's in the trenches, guys, we're in the trenches too. Let's do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you never expect anyone to do what you're not going to do. And so by you doing that, it sets the tone and go, all right, man, he's doing it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And then also, and your clients will appreciate that too. I've gotten calls, Wade, that like, oh, JD, I see you're doing higher end price homes. You probably don't want my listing. I'm like, no, of course I want your listing. Are you kidding me? No. And you don't want to be saying I'm not too big for anybody. That's contradictory. I just am able to do bigger stuff, but by all means, guys, I still want to sell your home. I still want to help you guys. That doesn't change anything. Have you got any of those calls? I'm curious.
Oh yeah, of course. The worst is whenever they don't call and they're like, we just thought you wouldn't want to help us because we were only looking here. I'm like, come on. Again, I have a finance background. Diverse portfolios are what they breathe down my throat all through college. Having diversity in price points and even areas of town, can help offset whenever one market's not moving. I looked at inventory in Central Austin the other day, just on MLS, and inventory north of $1 million is double what it is under $1 million in Central Austin. It was roughly pretty much double. So that tells me that things sub $1 million are still transacting. So it'll be interesting to see as we have these rate changes and rate cuts, and hopefully we have another one coming here soon, what that's going to do to our luxury market. Is it going to make any impact? I don't know. I don't think it'll make much impact from a jumbo loan perspective, but I think at least in the short run, if the stock market's doing well, maybe we pick up more cash transactions in the luxury space.
Yeah, I'm curious too how that's going to affect everything as well. But I agree with that point. You're being diverse is huge in real estate. I know people who focus nothing on ultra luxury, and when it was hurting bad, they're like, okay, I'm just going to have to sit on these homes. But the people who are just killing the mid-price homes are like, dude, I'm turning and burning these things, right? And that's great. To your point, I kind of do a little of everything. But being diverse is super important. And then talking both levels too, having that in your toolbox. I love working with first-time home buyers because it's such a special situation. I love it. I love educating. I love all that stuff. It's fun, regardless to do whatever price point. And no more of those calls. No more like, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't use it. Be like, no more of those calls. Not a good thing.
Me too. Hey, I love working for first-time home buyers as well. I do lead off with can we talk about your dads real quick? What do they do for a living? Are they going to be coming to the home inspection? Do they
good point.
I get that one out of the way first.
Who else is part of this decision? Who else is going to be? Exactly. For sure. Yeah. I get that all the time too. It's fun. It's funny. You're probably like me. I love when I get tested. They throw me things at me. Our goal is knock it out of the park with obviously our skill set, our knowledge, but I get it. They're protecting their kids. I would do the exact same thing, right? Making sure they have the best quality service, who knows their stuff. But there's no better feeling where you get that shake in the close and hey, thank you. You did well to my child and whatnot. I'm like, of course. There's that uphill battle you get, and you knock it out of the park. There's no better feeling.
Yeah, totally.
Before we get into wrapping up, a question about Austin, Texas. Obviously, that's your bread and butter. You know it. What's a medium price point? What's moving right now? What are you seeing in your market right now?
Medium price point's around $450-ish right now. It's always interesting to me how they splice this thing up because sometimes they bring in certain suburbs and sometimes they don't. So
because he just right?
Correct. And I think Austin Board of Realtors likes to. They just pull anyway, about 450 is right now the average. Inventory, we've got about 5.5 months of inventory, which for perspective, the height of the market when we had very little inventory, spring of 21 per se, for about that 6-month period, we were about 2 weeks of inventory, sometimes less. Sometimes we were 4 days of inventory. Now look, 5.5 months of inventory in general is not a tremendous amount, but we were just so low for so long, it feels like it's more than
not.
It feels like a lot. Yeah.
No, that's good. We have here about 3.5.
Pre-pandemic, we were probably hovering between the 2.5 to 3.5 for those 4 or 5 years prior to. So it is more than what we've seen.
How is the new construction? Are they doing well out there right now?
It depended on price point. It's still been a little bit sluggish. I think we had a lot of builders that were planning to exit at one number and now are exiting at another. We did see a lot of builders do a start-stop over the last couple of years. But I will say this, I think anyone who's building right now, who's got things coming on 6 months from now, after holidays, the problem with Austin right now is, or a little bit of a challenge right now is in our market, is that we have so many fun events that come up in October. So we have ACL this weekend, ACL Austin City Limits Music Festival this weekend and next weekend. Then we have the F1 races, the F1 is here, and then we have Halloween, then it's the election. And then we're pretty much into Thanksgiving. October's a busy month here in Austin and really catapults us into the holidays. And typically, people's focus are just on other things. We don't typically historically have had a seasonal market where January, February is when we start to see things start to pick up.
We're kind of the same way here. October kicks off a lot of things happening here. All our sports are starting again. Then we have F1 in November as well. And then, of course, holiday season. And then, of course, the strip prepares for the New Year's stuff, all this stuff. So we got a lot of that going on. But historically, after Super Bowl is when things take off again. And also the weather is phenomenal during that too. So that helps as well. Same situation with us here too. But I'm curious with all the things you mentioned with the elections going on, there's a lot more nuances because of that. So I'm curious what that does, whether it's push and pull, more of a bull market versus not. So to see what people do is I'm very curious as well to see what's going on, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. But I will say I've had several new buyers over the last week reach out kind of out of nowhere. People are looking to take advantage of this market before rates are back down to a bigger rate where there's more buyers in the pool. I think we're going to start to see some buyers pop out. I've sent out 3 new buyer reps this week. So
yeah, I can see that too. I see people, buyers start. I told my team and everyone else, I see buyers inquiring more, kind of figure like, is this the time? Should I come out of the woodworks right now? But to your point, do you want to compete against all the buyers, or do you want to have a little more options right now? That's kind of what I'm saying right now too. To each your own, but I'm all about not competing. So don't compete if you don't have to.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, man. So we're back to our last questions, man. I mean, is there anything else you want to say before I ask some fun questions? It's almost been an hour already.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about you, man. It's been awesome. But keep killing in Texas, man. Keep representing D to its fullest. Keep doing what you're doing. You're setting a new standard when it comes to social media presence, and you're just doing it right. But it doesn't seem forced, first and foremost. It also seems authentic. So you're the same person on social versus I seeing you here. So I applaud you for that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, man, of course. So my fun questions they're rapid fire questions. I'm gonna give you. Yeah, right. That's off the cuff. So they're one word, and you give me the word that comes to your mind when I say the word. Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. The first word is the first one is real estate. First word that comes to your mind.
Love.
Next word, horses.
Obsessed with.
Okay. Family.
First priority.
Daughter.
Just blessed.
Texas.
Home.
Love.
Everyone.
And then future.
Right.
Very cool. Very cool. That wraps the fire questions, my man. Good job. Yeah, man. But I want to say thank you for your time, my man. Obviously, people are watching this from all over the nation. Douglas Elliman, Wade Giles out of Austin, Texas, doing great things out there. So if you have Texas potential buyers or sellers, he knows this stuff. I'll definitely talk to him. Follow his social media. It's Wade Giles ATX, right?
It's Wade ATX. So WADE-ATX.
Yeah, Wade ATX. Follow him as well. And then when we post this, we'll also have his social media on this. You can follow him too. But cool. Great ideas. I might piggyback off some of your ideas too. It's cool, man. I think it's great. You're inspiring people, which is good. You're helping clients and you're doing the right thing. So I much appreciated.
Man, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. It's been an honor and I had a lot of fun.
Cool, man. I'm glad you had fun. And of course, Wade out of Texas, JD out of Vegas. If you need us, let us know. But thanks for your time, Wade. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, JD. Take care. Thanks.